Okay.
So let me just welcome you. It's a pleasure to have you with us. It's an attempt that we have been talking about for many years, and finally I was able to do it. And I think that we have a very nice group, most of young people. And I hope that everyone enjoys. Bob Carr is a very excellent friend and professional. You will see it throughout the discussion. Thanks, Bob, again.
Sure.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Let me share my screen then, and we will begin. So can everyone hear me okay? Daniela? Perfect. So I really am extremely excited to be with you all. You know, as Sergio mentioned, we've known each other for many, many years, 40, 42, 43 years. And one of the things that I've spent my whole life on is understanding, you know, how to take the knowledge of medicine and actually help not just the diagnosis and treatment of disease, but more upstream, the prevention and the endurance of increasing our body's capacity to prevent illness, to prevent mental ill health. And so, you know, I've put together a series of ideas that I hope will resonate with you, especially in the medical profession. You know, the last 2 years across the world, we've been under significant pressure, both at a personal level, at a social and community level, and actually at a professional level. And the health professions usually were under the most severe pressures because of the nature of the pandemic. So some of this is actually based on a lot of research that I've worked on personally, as well as others have worked on in this area of resilience, of understanding physiologically and neurophysiologically and psychologically what's going on in our brains, in our bodies, that either help us take the pressure and grow from it, or actually take that pressure and see it as strain and become a debilitating process. So yeah, what I'd like to kind of go through, and it's going to be pretty quick because this is a lot of material in an hour or so to work through, but I will be giving you some kind of tasks to take away to maybe as homework so that you can continue this journey beyond today. And really it's about understanding your why, your purpose, your what really motivates and pushes you, what are your passions, understanding a little bit about personal energy and resilience. What are the fundamentals? The more that you're aware and can monitor your body like you would your patients, the more you can create strategies or actual actions that can change that level of energy or that resilience when needed. And so those will be the strategies for helping you manage your energy better, improve that personal resilience, look at how well you recover. It's one of the areas I think that our society has lost. The ability and the regularity of recovery or rest, renewal, and therefore we are always stressed, we're always turned on, we're always engaged, we're not turning off, we're not, you know, disengaging. And then hopefully set some personal commitments that maybe you can begin a new perspective and a new way forward. And as I mentioned, you know, it's been a long 2 years. Not only, I think physicians, and I don't know in Brazil, they did a study showing that medical students in the US are some of the most resilient individuals in society. By the time they get through medical school, they're just slightly above average. By the time they get through residency, they're actually below average. And then 10 years out, they're extremely low on the resilience scale. And it's something that we're grappling with in our own medical training and residency training with physicians. Like, what takes such a strong individual and kind of tears them down and depletes their ability to manage adversity and manage pressure. And so part of this is some of the learnings around that. So, especially when you're starting out, if you have these tools and ideas and insights, you can actually maybe chart the trajectory of your life in a more positive way and in a more resilient way, so you're not as affected by the strains. The key is, do we actually manage and understand our own energy reserves like we would our iPhone? So many people know exactly what the level of the iPhone's battery is, but do you actually monitor your own level, and do you know how to plug in to actually recharge it? We'll talk a little bit about this. But what I'd like you to begin thinking about, and you can jot this down, on a piece of paper, just for self-reflection. What are some of your greatest work-related challenges? Just some of the things that are really stressing and straining you. When you think about those, think about how those challenges, how you respond to those, how you act in those, and keep those kind of in mind. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to kind of just think about that and write down. And if anyone wants to share with the group, since you're all kind of in the same area, any of the biggest work challenges, we're more than free. You can put it in the chat box, or you can, raise your hand, and Daniela will open up the microphone for you.
So I will start, Bob. I think one of the greatest work-related challenges for women is how to deal with family, kids, and work. I think most of us are very concerned about that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, that balance is really an extreme pressure, both self-imposed as well as societal imposed, right? You're trying to have excellence in personal life, excellence in professional life. You have expectations of what society feels you should be, and you lay on top of that your own perceptions and self-imposed views. So that's a great challenge, because both it's internally driven, we're going to get to some of the stories we tell ourselves. So what are the stories that you're telling yourself about that balance? And are those stories supporting you, or are they, actually not benefiting you because they're holding you back? So some of that is personal, and then again, it's just, how do I integrate it all? How do I manage it all, right? And so part of it is prioritization and management, and we'll talk about that as well. Any others?
I think, hi, it's Alice here. I think it's to stay healthy. For me, I can see myself and my colleagues how hard it is to keep health, working a lot. The amount that we work. Mm-hmm.
So while you're working extremely hard, how do you continue to stay healthy and work hard? Got it. Excellent.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that moves almost into the next area where we would talk about personal challenges. So just think about and reflect, write down a couple of the greatest personal challenges you're facing. So oftentimes, we try to separate work and life, personal life, but we're one human. So the challenge is that you bring your personal life to work and you bring your work life to home, right? So understanding these challenges and knowing, what is really pressurizing you is important, because with that knowledge and self-awareness, you can begin to act on things to help that, as well as just knowing that amongst your team that someone's struggling here, and maybe you can support them in a moment, but you didn't know that they were struggling. So how open are we to sharing some of the personal struggles? And again, don't have to get into a lot of details, but having social connections throughout personal and professional lives allow that support that's so critical. Just listening and knowing empathy, which is a great physician a characteristic, right? That empathy of knowing and just being there if people need to have someone listen is important. And so I think those are areas that this last 2 years has somewhat pressurized us as well, because a lot of the social connections that allowed for just basic support, basic conversations, understanding, oh, that person just lost someone in their family, or that person's struggling with a relationship, or that person's child is having a challenge. Understanding that allows that person to be supported. And so again, understanding your own personal challenges is important, because one of the things that I want to focus everyone on is how then can we use this why, this purpose that is kind of our underlying motivation to actually allow us to build better energy capacity and reserve. So part of the energy management strategy is we have an amount of energy, and are we using it wisely? So that's an efficiency element. Do we use what we have wisely, or do we let it drain out? Like, you go to a meeting, and in some meetings you come out energized because the topic of the meeting, the energy of the group was very positive, and you leave that room energized. Or you go into a meeting and you're drained, right? And so it's not totally a physical draining of energy, but it's an emotionally draining of energy. So how do we manage the energy we have throughout the day is important. Plus, what is the capacity to build more? How do we actually grow that muscle of energy in our different areas? And we'll talk a little bit about that, because then you can intentionally, and I use that word intentional, invest that energy and using renewal to grow. It's just like if I go to the gym and I work out my muscle, I just can't keep lifting weights. The muscles will kind of give up. I need to then rest it, and it's in the rest cycle. It's when that muscle actually kind of grows. It's in our sleep cycle when we actually learn. We get stressed and challenged in school and in cases that we're working on in your professional life. But when you're actually sleeping is when it's all put together and you kind of retain it as knowledge, right? So again, we're stressing, but are we allowing ourselves enough recovery and rest to grow? And that is where you are allowed to achieve that optimal performance. So let's talk a little bit about purpose, because it is a complex, word. And like Sergio, would you say that purpose is propósito? Is that the word that you would use in Portuguese?
Probably like objective.
Objective. Okay.
Yeah. What's your goal?
What's your goal? Right. So it's a broad goal. It's an overarching life aim that actually organizes your actions. The purpose of you going into medical school, the purpose of you going through residency, and the purpose of you studying changes from maybe you're studying to please your parents when you're young. Now you're studying to kind of gain self-esteem as you get older, but your residency and your practice of medicine is actually, the purpose is to help your patients, right? So you shift a little bit of those goals as you become more mature, and that purpose drives you. And that purpose of helping your patients, bringing them the best medical care, the best medicine, to eliminate their suffering, to reduce their pain, is a powerful motivator, right? That's why you work such long hours. That's why the medical community is always caring for others. So we need to understand a little bit about self-care. And so this purpose is fundamental to that. And it's the reason why I say it's not soft. There are so many studies over the last 10 years, over And it just keeps growing and growing. In the last 3 years, there's over 500 studies, peer-reviewed, published articles in how the strength of a connection to purpose has health or health-related outcomes in mental and physical areas. And these are just some of them. And I will, share, like, this was a study done that showed that, individuals who have a strong connection to their purpose actually have quicker and more effective emotional recovery from adverse stimuli. So when they go through adverse events, that purpose kind of keeps them intact. They also found that individuals who have a strong connection to life purpose was actually a stronger determinant for decreasing risk of death than drinking, smoking, or exercising regularly. So it's almost like a modifiable risk factor, but we don't ask patients usually, like, there are some scales that you could use to determine the strength of the connection to their purpose, but we don't often ask them like we would a smoking history or a family history. But it is perceptibly a modifiable risk factor that if you can strengthen it, you actually are doing that patient a world of good, as well as helping them manage some of their responses to things in life that could deplete their energy, deplete their immune status, etc. So there's more studies that show that people who have a strong connection to purpose have more telomerase, which of course we know that helps in the repair of DNA. So, is that the reason why there's greater longevity? There's just so many interesting elements to this area. And the reason, and this is, I was sharing earlier that we're doing a clinical trial at University of Michigan with patients focusing on their purpose and functioning on their purpose to manage pain and manage the pain and the ill at ease effects of chemotherapy. So at the ventromedial prefrontal cortex is that part of the brain that actually allows us rational thought. It controls our impulses. It gives you hope, that future thinking. And the amygdala, that part of the brain that's always engaged when we're stressed or when we see change or when we have uncertainty, that these two are interplay at all times, right? When your ventromedial prefrontal cortex is highly engaged, the amygdala quiets down. And we know that from the last 2 years, pretty much everyone's been in a heightened amygdala, state because of just so much global uncertainty and economic uncertainty and challenges at work, challenges with illness, and that total uncertainty has kept us in that stress level. The functional MRI study showed that when you focus on your purpose, that prefrontal cortex gets activated and the amygdala quiets down. So is it that individuals who have that connection to their purpose and live their life through their purpose, are they able to quiet down the amygdala and allow the body, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic to kind of go back to a better homeostasis? I don't have the answers to that, but there's some areas that greater research will be, I think, clarifying this to the point where this is why people live longer. This is perhaps why they have better diabetic control when they are focused on their purpose, because they set actions also that are aligned with their purpose. So the insight number one is, and this is not new, this is Nietzsche's quote, that he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. So if you have that why and you know the why, then you actually can bear a lot more adversity than others. So that's kind of the first insight that I'd like to share with you. And that this purpose, then if you can strengthen that, and we're gonna, towards the end, I'm gonna give you an exercise to take home to actually help you build that, can help you provide the direction in your life. It can help you guide and make decisions because they'll be aligned to that purpose. It will help you prioritize your energy investments. It's just like a mission of an organization, a company. When you prioritize, you reallocate your resources, your money, your people. You do that to ensure that your mission will be executed, right? So if our purpose is to live a life that's meaningful and that has had maximal impact on the people that we've connected with, then how do we do that? And what investments in energy do I need to make today, tomorrow, and in the future? And it also inspires you to act when you really don't feel motivated. I know in the US now in medical school, which wasn't when I was in medical school, but they are doing a lot more motivational interviewing, where people are trying to capture the patient's purpose and use that purpose to inspire action and compliance with recommendations, right? So it's that motivational interviewing that's becoming part of the medical training that, you know, is based on some of this recent work that we've identified. So let me just hold there and share that your purpose actually shifts as well as you mature and as you iterate and think about these things at a deeper level. And I guess on the superficial surface, my purpose was originally just to make a positive impact in everything I do. That was kind of, if I had to bring it down to one area, one thought, that was what I felt like I had to do. But over time, I really realized that isn't going to motivate me. I need to actually have a more specific set of goals. So the key, as I've matured and moved in various roles in large companies and now back in startup companies, is just to make a significant difference in the world. And when I meet people, to encourage, support, and positively impact them, to be a full partner to my wife, to grow that relationship and continue to nurture that. Now that my kids are adults, to maintain intentional and supportive connections, not as much to guide and help them develop into good adults. They're already good adults now. And so now I have to intentionally keep those connections going. And then really just keep challenging myself, keep growing, remain positive, express gratitude, and learn from life's journey, which, this now I can wrap my hands around and can help me guide my actions, the things I want to work on, the types of groups and businesses that I want to work with. This is, I think, how we begin to develop our own sense of purpose that will help you. So why is purpose so important? Well, it allows you to invest that energy in maintaining your best self. And that is about you knowing who you are at your best and the impact you want to have on others. And this is what I would call the purpose framework that helps you build that. So maybe just, again, you take a note and reflect, what are maybe 4, 5, 6 words that describe you at your best when you're in that most impactful or high performing, you're feeling like you're in the zone. What are those 6 words that describe you? I'll give you a moment to think about those and just write them down. The reason why it's important to know this is when you're not in one of those 6 words, how do you get back to that point? So, if your best self is I'm caring, courageous, energized, positive, but all of a sudden you feel less positive, less courageous, less caring, what can help you get back to that state? Because when you're in your best self is when you're, really performing at a high level. And part of this reflection is not just to describe yourself at your best, but who or what gets your best self. So are the things that matter most to you getting your best self and your best energy? Or are some of those things that matter most to you getting your energy leftovers? They're not your best energy, right? and what gets in the way of you being your best self. Understanding a few of these. So this will be kind of a homework assignment where you kind of reflect on your best self and your best energy, and really, is it in the right ratio? Are the things in your personal life getting as much of your high energy as in your professional life? If not, how can you build a strategy to change that? What gets in the way of you being your best self? What are some of the barriers? Is it, the way meetings are scheduled? Is it, how you interact sometimes with individuals? Do you actually come away energized or almost down from some of those? And if that's the case, how do you correct that? Because you don't want your energy to be drained throughout the day. You want to leave the profession that is giving you this passion, this impact, with more energy than when you started. I mean, that's what a very strong why and the role that you have in that strong why can do. It can really energize you, so you leave knowing you've made a great impact, and then that personal life gets your full and best energy as well. So this is more of an at-home reflection. I guess I just could open it up to maybe just a couple of people sharing maybe what gets in the way of them being their best self, if anyone wants to share.
Bob,
Yes.
my feeling is that most of the time, the things that we plan to do at the same time, multiple tasks, disturbs our focus on what we can imagine that really matters.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the workload perhaps is the most clear in my mind, most clear thing that puts you away of this line.
Right. That's great, Sergio. And I think that is probably one of the predominant challenges or stressors we all have, is both other imposed workload as well as self-imposed workload. So there's some things we're in control of and some things we're not in control of. But if the things we're not in control of continually stress us, we have to begin influencing the people who have control over that to make them aware of how it's impacting our long-term sustainability, our long-term capacity to perform at high levels in a healthy way, not in a perform at all costs, but have a healthy high performance rather than just high performance. So that, I think this is one of the root issues with both how you build your schedule and clinics and in health systems. It's really tough because you have automated systems that block patients, and there's revenue focused areas that are driving more patients per hour, but then there's self-imposed. What are you doing in between those to actually give yourself a break? Are you recovering energy in between? Are you using technology to help you recover that energy? Are you actually amplifying that drain by continuing to do full engagement? And so again, how you manage the cadence of stress and then rest and stress and rest is important. And we'll talk a little bit about that because that is a huge drain. So let's move into that energy. What would you do with more energy? Again, this is a question for you to think about, because that's motivational. Like, if you had more energy, would you, use it for what? And that for what is really a part, again, of that purpose of your why. Because if you need to change some of your current behaviors to give you more capacity or better management of your existing capacity, for what purpose? What would you do with it? And that should be motivational. So again, this is a kind of a take-home thought just to begin thinking about this. And one of the things that I really stress with everyone that I coach and with people that I work with is, professional athletes don't get there by just thinking and doing. They actually are meticulously managing their training in a log, right, in a journal. And so we need to begin thinking, are there ways that we can begin to more in a disciplined way understand, okay, today I wanted to do this, but this got in the way. Okay, so what am I going to do differently tomorrow so that that doesn't happen again? Like an athlete will know how water and hydration affected them. They'll know how their mental preparation affected their performance. They'll know how the training the week before affected their performance. And if it didn't work, they will shift, right? Or if it did work, they'll continue that, that way. So I think we need to get a little bit more in a training mode to really understand, how do we manage our pressures? Are there ways that we can try out to manage pressures differently with hopefully a better outcome? So the shift, though, in thinking, though, is that it's not necessarily how much time you have, but what is the quality of energy you invest in the time that you have? And can you, spend 5 quality minutes with someone to build a relationship versus spending 1 hour without any quality of energy, right? And that 5 minutes could be so much more important. So it's not so much I need more time, I need to have higher levels and higher quality of energy in the time that I have. So this is a kind of a shift in thinking, is to focus more on your energy rather than just the time. And the way I look at the energy dimensions is in 4 ways. There's a physical amount, that's, kind of ATP, at the cellular mitochondrial level. That's your quantity. And that we'll talk about what drives that quantity. That's a fixed quantity. Then your emotional state can actually change the quality of that quantity through how the emotions affect that. Mental is what you were describing, Sergio, is how you focus your energy on things that matter most, like a laser on those areas, and how your mind actually either helps or detracts from your management of that energy. And we'll talk a little bit about cognitive reframing and how that helps. And then the spiritual, that's purpose, your why. Some people have strong faiths. That is a purpose. Others who don't have strong faiths have other strong areas of purpose, values, passions. That is the force behind your energy, and it kind of provides that renewable, like solar energy, a renewable way that your body can be physically energized, emotionally connected in a positive way with others. You can mentally focus, and then with a connection to your purpose, it's a positive circuitous cycle, and it constantly replenishes. And this is part of what those studies show, why individuals are healthier when they have that strong connection to purpose, and they're managing their energy in these 4 areas in an appropriate way. So, how you fuel your body, how you move throughout the day, how you sleep and recover, as well as how you hydrate. These are all aspects of the quantity of energy. So I would just, as this is being recorded, and you'll have the slides again, I would go through and in a homework, normally I would ask people to begin really thinking about whether they're satisfied with their nutrition, their movement throughout the day, their sleep, and their hydration. So again, I would use these to kind of, on a scale of 0 to 10, how satisfied are you with it? And are there areas that you could improve? Do you not eat anything, and therefore you're kind of running on empty nutritionally, and then at the same time you're having to deal with emotional issues, whether it's a patient who's just been given devastating news or a personal relationship. How does that affect your ability to manage that moment, right? And we find that people who have errors in life, whether they're in a corporate role or in a medical role, it's usually when they're fatigued and exhausted, and their lack of resilience puts them in a position where they're not focusing that high quality of energy, and then they have that issue of lapsing. In the emotional domain, again, we talked about quality, and the emotions impact how we think, how we focus, how we make judgments, how we remember. They impact our well-being. They impact our confidence, which is huge in terms of self-esteem and us being able to, manage adversity and feel like this uncertainty, I've got it, rather than this uncertainty, it's overwhelming and I'm worried and I'm concerned and I'm anxious and it just tears us down, right? So confidence is huge. Interpersonal effectiveness is strongly impacted by emotional energy and the fulfillment and satisfaction in life. In fact, the number one derailer of executives in most business studies, and I would imagine it's probably the same in medicine as well, but I haven't seen any studies on physicians, but the number one derailer of executives is emotional intelligence. It's when the executive lacks emotional intelligence, which means self-awareness of their own emotional state and self-management of their own emotional state, and social awareness of the emotions of others, and then relationship management. If they don't have that ability, they get derailed along the way, and their ability to be a more impactful executive lessens. So again, the third insight is that emotional self-regulation and regularly accessing positive emotions will improve physical and mental well-being and life success. And just to give you an example, we're humans, and so we operate in these four dimensions of what I will call high energy emotions and low energy emotions, and positive energy emotions and negative energy emotions. And it's natural that we are in all of those areas. Where we really are in the zone and we're performing with maximal impact is in that right upper quadrant, high energy, high positive. We're passionate, we're engaged, we're optimistic, we're energized. When things hit us, like someone cuts you off in traffic, or a major change happens that you weren't made aware of, and you really are feeling left out and angry, you move to survival. Your amygdala gets activated and it's fight or flight, right? And so you have those anxious, impatient, frustrated, fear, angry, road rage, right? Defensive, irritable. When that goes on for a long time, and we're seeing this in medicine now in the US over the last 2 years, the amount of depression in healthcare workers, especially those in not just the front lines, but in ICUs, having to have dealt with COVID, both the fear of them bringing COVID back to their families and having to be separated in the beginnings of the disease, of the pandemic, and then the aftermath of just seeing death and death and death, which wasn't a usual occurrence. They had no recovery, so they actually went to burnout. And that's the overwhelmed feelings and exhausted feelings and hopelessness and being discouraged. And again, that's a low energy negative. And then the positive energy, but low levels of energy is actually that recovery area. That's being peaceful, calm, meditative, sleeping. Those are ways that we recover. And the key is knowing that this is the high performance, this is the survival, this is your forced recovery in a sense. If you don't recover and get out of that state, after a while, you're going to be forced into this negative, low energy state. And the renewal is important. So knowing where you are throughout the day, and whether or not you're in the upper left-hand quadrant more with certain people, or at home when you don't want to be, and you're more in maybe the upper right-hand quadrant at work, is that where you want to be? So again, just knowing the ratio of when it matters most, where is your energy? And if it's in the wrong quadrant for too long, how do you get out of it? Knowing a strategy to get out of it is important. And this is, again, part of that energy management. The key is oscillating between high performance and recovery, just like athletes. An athlete who runs a marathon really can't run another marathon right after that first marathon. It's very difficult. But an athlete who breaks a world record in the morning can actually break the world record in the evening because they've rested, right? So they do full on sprint and then full off rest. So again, that cadence of renewal throughout the day, and it doesn't have to be long periods. It could be as short as 2 to 3 minutes of a disengagement, micro burst of recovery can actually maintain that level of high performance. So these are just some strategies you can think about. Again, you'll have the recording, so you can go back to it. And if you want to try some of these out, I'm going to take you through one little exercise. But gratitude, deep breathing, laughter, conscious acts of kindness, taking an alternate view, challenge your thinking. These are all ways to actually help improve your emotional state and build stronger emotional energy. Another is just a simple self-audit. What am I feeling? How is what I'm feeling affecting my actions or my behavior? Why am I feeling? Do I have some insights? How are these affecting others? Are they really what I want to have happen? And if not, how do I change that? So building a strategy around that, and I will go through a couple of ways to do that, but it's important to have that self-awareness, because with that self-awareness, you can act. If you're never thinking about this and you're just kind of living life without understanding these emotional states, you're missing out on an opportunity to kind of intervene, like an intervention, and change it. And that can change the trajectory. And emotions are really important in relationships, right? And they, just like emotional regulation, relationships constantly require your attention, even when it doesn't seem like it. It's important, whether they're professional relationships or not. And part of that emotional awareness is that your attitude affects your behavior, which affects other people's attitudes, which affects their behavior, which then affects your behavior. So it's either a positive cycle or it could be a negative, destructive cycle. So this is a classic Batari box that just shows the interpersonal relationships of emotional state and its effect on your actions and on your attitude. So just a simple, and this I usually would add a couple of things, but in the interest of time, one simple way to, in 1 minute, kind of regulate is box breathing. Basically, you think of a box with 4 corners, and you start 4 seconds inhaling, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds exhale, and 4 seconds hold. And by doing this, because the minute that we are in this agitated amygdala hijacked state, we go into shallow breathing, right? That's, we're ready to flee or to fight. So this actually tries to re-regulate, and actually studies have shown this reduces blood pressure and it calms. Very simple. It's a great tool if you are thinking about too many things before you go to bed. I do this often. And the next thing, after I start this, I wake up because I've totally stopped thinking about what was churning in my mind, because I'm so focused on this box that my body, which was tired, but my mind was churning, lets me sleep. And so it's a great sleeping tool too. But if you're, find yourself, angry, upset, this is a very quick way to re-engage. So the last areas is really around this mental energy and the spiritual energy. And as I mentioned, this is really where you intentionally decide where you want to invest your energy, right? Are you doing it in the right things? Or are you spending too much on areas that probably don't need it as much as other areas? And sometimes the reason is those other areas are harder. Yeah, for instance, relationships are really hard to work on. And it's much easier to doing a work-related task than a relationship task. However, in the long run, a stronger relationship is more healthy and supportive of you than that one little goal. So again, asking yourself, what's getting in the way of me working on something that I actually need to work on versus something that is easy to do, and really challenge yourself to move to that more difficult task, because it's more aligned with your purpose ultimately and your why. And so some of this is about the stories we tell, like we have this amazing mechanism to create a story. Sometimes it's based on truth, but sometimes it's based on faulty assumptions. And whether or not that story holds us back, it could be a self-limiting story, or pushes us forward, a motivating story. I think this is, I pull out a couple of examples. I don't have time to exercise because I have more important priorities. The benefit, this is like the perceived benefit that's keeping me from exercising, is by skipping exercise, I have more time to do my work and handle other responsibilities. But really, if my purpose is to care for my children and I'm not able to care for my children because I'm not exercising, I'm going to have a heart attack, or if my relationship sours because I'm working too much, or my physical well-being is suffering, we have to reframe that benefit into something that's maybe more motivational. What could be more important than taking care of myself? So I can be there for the people and things that are more important to me. Exercise will give me more energy to perform better in all areas of my life. So how do you shift that story that you're telling yourself about exercise to one that actually pushes you to do something that's good for you? So another one is, I don't have much time to spend with family because my job is so demanding and I need to achieve my goals and provide for them. And the benefit that you're telling yourself is that if I spend nights, weekends working, I get more work done and I'll be more valued at work. And maybe it's easier than dealing with stuff at home. There are a lot of other benefits that are in this area. But the key is that my family does need and deserve my attention. I need to carve out a small period of time each day so I don't miss out on a life without them, because so many times people at the end of their life wish they wouldn't have worked so hard. So you have the chance now to kind of build that trajectory now and mitigate that regret. You won't have that if you actually force yourself to carve out more time and higher levels of energy in that time. So just, the homework here is to really be aware of any of the stories that you tell yourself that keep you from doing what you really think you should do. And how can you reframe them? How can you build a new story that's more motivating? My old story was this, my new story is this, and this will help me achieve my purpose. So again, you're linking it to that purpose. So again, the spiritual energy creates that force, and that force allows you to really think about the impact you want to make in the world. And that this is another reflection. Again, it will be homework because we really can't do it right now. It takes a good 10 minutes to really reflect on what would you like people you care about most to describe you and the impact you've had on them at the end of your life. To me, that's a very powerful reflection. It gets at your core values. It gets at what really motivates you. And also it puts into words kind of a vision. You have a vision of something that you can now achieve. I want to be seen as this positive role model for my children, or be a full partner. And I can ask my wife or my kids, like, what am I doing right, and what do I need to do better, or what could I do more of to make that goal achievable? Because sharing those goals is important with the people that you love. And professionally, you have goals that you want to maybe be the best physician in this one area, because that will help drive research and drive new knowledge in this area. It will bring you personal satisfaction and meaning, and it will help millions of people as patients. So like, how do you want to frame that? How do you want to create a vision statement around that allows you then to be motivated to act in certain ways, right? So again, these are all ways to help you self-motivate. Some just simple purpose questions, because I would like you also to build your own purpose statement like I did. Who or what matters most to you? What impact do you want to have on others? Who relies on you? What must I complete to have lived a life of true success? Why am I here? All of these are just reflective questions to get you to write out your purpose statement. So this is the final kind of piece of reflective homework, is my purpose is, and really you fill in the blank. And I'll be happy actually to, if you want to email me after and, just give you some ideas as you build this, I'll be happy to interact with you. And so anyone on the call, I'm opening myself to an email exchange if you like, and helping you build that purpose that will motivate you. because you lose your way when you lose your purpose, right? Your purpose is like the GPS. It's like your North Star. Your purpose helps you, like in a sailboat. If you know where the goal post is to win, even if the wind pushes you to the left, you can tack the sail and you can then, go back to where you need to be. But if you don't know where that is, you'll just be listless and you'll just be kind of moving without direction, without purpose. So again, this is that last insight. So finally, just this last bit on building a resilient and meaningful life. It's really about this concept, and this is the definition that I like and I've used the past 10 years. And I just want to ask, maybe if anyone, what words pop out of this definition? The acquired ability to regularly recover, adapt, and grow from stress. What words pop out? So one word maybe is the acquired, right? It's a learned capacity. We're not necessarily born with it. We can actually grow it as a muscle. So that's powerful because we now have ways to grow greater resilience, but it needs regular use of recovery or renewal of energy. And that allows us to adapt and grow from stress, right? Darwin said that the species that survives is the one that most efficiently and effectively adapts to extreme environmental changes, right? So in a sense, everything that we do, whether we're learning in school, to learning a new language, to meeting new people, that is all, in a sense, adapting to a change. And that adapting allows us to, grow from that change. But to grow, one needs to really understand this concept of strategic recovery. And again, it starts with what is your basic awareness of your own battery? If you don't know what your energy level is throughout the day, then you're not able to kind of plug in. And this is the definition that I use on recovery is an intentional relief of stress and a renewal of energy, right? And it's just like any kind of like if you looked at muscle growth, you stress it, you recover, and then it grows more and it grows more and it grows more. And you're able to actually increase the capacity of that muscle. So you can increase your emotional energy capacity by, managing and working on relationships. You can increase your spiritual energy by really meditating and thinking deeply and reflective on your purpose, on your values, what motivates you. And you can, of course, increase your physical energy through better nutrition, better movement, exercise, better sleep, and better hydration throughout the day. So these are all ways to increase how you take stress and actually convert it into growth. So one of the things that's important is to have a list, like a toolkit of things that you can do in less than 5 minutes that could help you recover. So, some things that people will say is, like they call a friend, or they watch a funny video clip, or they listen to music. Something in 5 minutes, they get up and they walk around. Something that disengages you from that stressful, whether it's an emotional stress, physical stress, mental stress, or spiritual stress. There are some things you can do, and having a list of what works for you, and sharing maybe there are some things that other people do that you would like to try out yourself. That's important. And then you should also know what you can do in 15 minutes or more. Like box breathing is a very quick way to kind of re-regulate your emotional state. So that's kind of a very quick way. But then maybe a 30-minute session in yoga could really be important, or walking out during lunch and taking a nice walk in a park. Know what helps you recover. You're all unique and you all have different things that you do. Make a list, and then maybe share. Maybe one of the things you can do later as a team after today is to kind of just share some of your insights about this hour, what were some takeaways? What were some of the things that people actually are doing that helps them? Oftentimes what our peers do are really cool, and we don't know what we don't know, but when someone shares one of the tips that they do, we may want to take that on and do it. So the last insight is this: using life's challenge with reflection, and again, like an athlete, reflection and recovery to grow, meaning keep that journal going. And this is one of the biggest stresses I had, was to adapt to the F-15 when I was in the Air Force. I had to learn how to build capacity of G tolerance. I was very weak when I started. Like, I could only last about 5 Gs, and I got up to pretty close to 7.5 to 8, and then they put you in a machine like this, where you're actually learning techniques on how to build up your capacity to grow. So we've all been through new challenges, and with the right level of training and reflection and recovery, you can actually grow from that. And so these are the importance of building some habits. And what I'd like you to take away with are some commitments of building intentionality into your life. Building your life with an intention every day. You wake up, you have an intention of your attitude, and you have an intention of a set of activities. Some are going to be professional, some are going to be personal, some are going to be maybe for friends and community. Whatever they are, begin to build intentionality into your life on a daily basis, and then check. But starting with that why, with your why, with the purpose, like that is your driving force. With that intention, that moves to an action. And through that action, you learn more about yourself. And through that action, and then reflection of, did the action work? Did I do what I wanted to do? Was it done in the way I wanted it? That's growth. And then through that reflection back to the new intention for tomorrow is, okay, what has that given me about my own self-awareness? Should I continue to do something that's working? Do I need to tweak it? Do I need to change it? This is this cycle of intentionality and personal growth and personal change. So some examples, set an intention when you wake up, take a morning walk, only check emails 2 to 3 times a day. I mean, these are just some ideas. Everyone has their own life and their own kind of exigencies and times and workload areas that are going to be different. So you have to develop your own customized set of rituals. But it's important to make sure you have these recovery rituals. Like if you have a meeting invite technology function, don't set it for 60 minutes, set it for 45 minutes. Give yourself 15 minutes between meetings so you can recover. It's like Control-Alt-Delete. You need time to reboot yourself from whatever that meeting was to prepare for the next meeting or the next patient. Sometimes we have this default where we just keep going and going and going and we don't stop. And technology can be our friend or it can be our enemy. And I think sometimes we can build into using technology to be, supportive of the actions and intentions, we want. And again, I think journaling is another ritual. Journaling every day, 5 minutes. That's all it takes, just to say what worked today, what didn't, how is it going to influence tomorrow? You get up tomorrow, you journal, you reflect, you set an intention, you live your day. So those are the key insights I wanted to leave you with. And so maybe just think about, again, and I will be more than happy to help you come up with 1 or 2 things that you would commit to improve in your own well-being and resilience in support of your purpose. So after you do some of this reflective thinking, commit to 1 or 2 things that you want to try out. You want to explore maybe a more regular exercise, a more regular eating pattern, a better way of approaching a relationship at work or at home. Try something and then give it a shot and see if you can actually make a difference, and if that can actually then increase the energy that you have for other things in your life. So in closing, these are the insights. He who has a why to live for can bear any how. The paradigm shift, it's not the time you have that matters, but the quality of energy you invest in the time you have. Emotional self-regulation and regularly accessing positive emotions improves physical and mental well-being, as well as life success. Relationships constantly require your attention, even when they don't really seem that they need it, they do. Be aware of your story and the perceived benefits, the story you tell yourself. You lose your way when you lose your purpose. So really constantly try to stay connected to your purpose and use the challenges, the stressors, and the areas in your life that are pressures with appropriate reflection and recovery to grow and adapt. And then finally, just build better intentionality into your life. And that will hopefully allow you to change the direction in a more purposeful way. So you have an intentional compass of where you're going, and you're not just going where you're going. You know exactly where you're going and why. So that's it, Sergio. I'm opening for questions. I know it was a lot, and a lot to cover in a small amount of time, but hopefully it gives you a lot of insights, and then maybe there's one area that speaks to you that you will, attend to, and I'll be again more than happy to connect with you offline and help you sort out or work through some of the reflections and the challenges I gave you.
Well, thanks a lot. I think that we would need a full seminar for that. Probably 2 or 3 days in Rio would do good.
Yeah. Rio
anyway,
sounds nice, especially now it's getting cold in Porto Alegre, right?
We do have a few minutes that we can try to address some pressing questions.
Yes, absolutely. I'd be more than happy.
Does anybody?
I'd just like to make a comment, Bob. It was amazing, great, really inspiring to listen to all your lecture. And I think what you stressed is very important, that everybody should find their own way, because people are different. So when I was reading your slides, I was thinking about me, and for example, for me, physical activity is a way to try to eliminate stress and to live better. But for other people, maybe talking to friends. So I think we should find a way that we feel better. And this is really important.
Yes.
And I love the slide with the emotional energy. I think it's great, because if you think about it, you can have bad, negative energies and positive energies. And so you have to balance this, because it happens all the time.
Yeah, and you have to know, how do you shift from left to right, right? What are the things that will get you from being angry to being okay? What are some of the things you do that can help you? And I think, again, everyone's different. So when you're feeling down, some people like to go for a walk, or some people like to go into the gym, and some people like to listen to music, and that will make them, get out of their angry state. So knowing those tools is so important. So you can just reach into your toolkit really quick and do something.
Great.
Bob, if a little bit of a comment, but also a quick question. I feel like this whole subject on self-knowledge and self-awareness and purpose, it has hit the bigger part of people and population kind of recently.
Mm-hmm.
And we leave a conversation like this very thoughtful and all that. And we create our rituals and our best practices on getting some of these things done. But it's very easy for work routine drag us in to the normal life, let's put it that way.
Right.
How would you suggest, or if there is any suggestion on how to keep an eye on these rituals? What I mean is, it's easy for the next 10 days, think of this. Maybe in 15, 20, we get dragged in the routine and we basically forget. Do you take notes? Do you go through iPhone alarms or something like that, so that you can remember to not let that be forgotten?
You raised a great question. I didn't have time to go into what I call accountability and managing setbacks, but clearly, as you begin a ritual, to become a habit, depending on the intensity of the ritual, can be anywhere from, studies show 7 days to about 3 weeks, where it becomes automated, and you instead of having to consciously put energy to do that ritual every day, it becomes a habit and you're pulled to do it. And it's like brushing your teeth. If you don't brush your teeth, you feel like, oh, I forgot, I missed something in my life, right? So that's a habit that was a ritual. Your parents made you do it every night, and then it becomes an automated process, right? So we want to get many of our things into the automated process as possible. So that's doing rituals, consistently until they become an automated habit. But having the accountability is, for instance, if I'm trying to work on a relationship and I'm going to take 5 minutes every day to just ask my wife, like, so how was your day? What can I help you process anything? Whatever, the way you interact with, someone you love, let her know that you're working on that, because she'll also say, hey, like, you missed the day, because you can use them as feedback, right? If you're working on something, being a better leader, you're trying to be more patient, or you've been told that people don't feel you're communicative, let them know that I'm going to work on that. And so after a month, you ask them, how's it improved? And if not, that's a good feedback, right? So part of it is establishing accountability partners in this, when you have your self-accountability, but part of it is this accountability partners, but also using technology. So if you feel like you want to exercise, block off time in your calendar so no one can put an appointment there. You have control over parts of your calendar. And if you don't put the big rocks in first, all the little rocks will cover up the opportunities for the big rock, which, you may need an hour to do an appropriate workout, but now you have a 10-minute block. If you would have blocked it off earlier. So I have like a 2-hour block in the mornings on Monday morning and on Friday afternoon called strategic thinking. I can do whatever I want. I can read journals, I can think, I can build a new presentation. It's my time. And when people see my calendar, they see that it's blocked. So I, take more control. Not everyone has the control that maybe I have, and I understand that. But whatever control you have, whatever device, if it's getting up and stretching instead of just sitting all afternoon, have a little pop-up reminder, every hour, stand up. And then you just stand up, do a stretch, and then, you go back and sit down. So, and then the last is journaling. I really, I do it electronically. I don't write in a physical journal, but to me, it's just like, I'm just doing a check of, did I do what I said I was going to do? And if not, what got in the way? How can I prevent that tomorrow from also getting in the way? Because that's what happens. Something gets in the way. And then after 2 or 3 days, you forget that now it's what got in the way is taking priority. So you fall off that ability to stay true to that action. So again, if you're constantly checking and then building kind of a mitigation strategy to prevent that barrier from happening again, then you have more success of overcoming. And the concept of neuroplasticity, right? There are channels that our electrical mind has created that are very efficient, and we just kind of like a well-worn path. It just goes, and we myelinate that, and it goes faster and faster. That's default. We have to actually, in a sense, create new pathways and do it often enough so actually we're almost like remyelinating. We otherwise we'll go back to that path again that's been well worn. We're kind of taking the machete and we're knocking down the grass and we're building it. So it's tough the first few days, but then after a while it will be as used as that other pathway, and then eventually the other pathway kind of gets reabsorbed and it's no longer available. So, but that's the automative process if you think of neuroplasticity and how it works.
Thanks again. It was great. You know that I'm number one, your fan. And Danny, you could close the session. I think that we have other previously scheduled things that we can compete with you right now.
share. Don't forget to share people my email, and
Okay.
again, as I mentioned, I'd be more than happy to come up on another half-hour Q&A if that's another thing down the line. If people,
Okay, we can do that.
after a month or so, I'm happy to do whatever.
Thank you very much, Bob. Thank you, Sergio, for giving us this great opportunity. So I will finish the meeting in Portuguese. So I'm very happy to meet you. Muito obrigada pela presença de todos. Esse webinar vai ficar gravado. Assim que a gente divulgar no YouTube, a gente manda o link para vocês e o e-mail do Bob também. Muito obrigada e boa tarde a todos.
Boa tarde. Boa
Boa
sorte.
tarde.
Boa sorte.
Até logo.